Hello there, my name is Quentin Russell. I'm the content marketing specialist here at Doc365, and today we're going to be presenting the next part of our SharePoint Basics series. This week we're going to be talking about metadata. So with that said, here's what we're going to talk about today. So first of all, we're going to talk about Doc365, our history, who we are, what we do. From there, we'll take a look at metadata itself. So exploring what it is and how, all of the different aspects of it and what goes into the actual kind of buzzword that everyone throws around. From there, we'll take a look at why you should be using metadata. So, we'll take a look at some specific use cases and then anything that, the ways it can benefit you pretty much. And then from there, we'll take a look at how to set up and manage metadata. So we'll go into a live SharePoint environment. I'll show you guys how to set up some basic metadata, talk through some of my thoughts on it. And then from there, I'll give you a few tips on ways that you can really make metadata work for your organization. And then finally, we'll do a question and answer session. So the way that'll work is that throughout the webinar, if people would like to post questions in the chat, I will then go through and check those out at the end, taking a look at them, answering anything. And if there's anything I can't answer, I will send it out as part of the follow-up email later today that will also contain the recording of today's webinar. So with that said, let's jump into today's webinar. So first of all, who are we? So we're Doc365. We're a company located in Jacksonville, Florida. We have over 17 years of experience working with SharePoint to deliver an exceptional range of productivity solutions. We've worked with a ton of different companies in a variety of industries to implement a diverse array of SharePoint productivity tools. So these include intranet portals, contract management systems, CRM solutions, and more. First and foremost, we are committed to making sure that you can get the most out of your SharePoint investment without breaking the bank, because a lot of the solutions that we provide can help you utilize SharePoint in new ways and make sure that you're not just using it as a glorified file server and wasting a ton of money on a bunch of different documents and doing everything everywhere. Instead, we can help you combine everything into one single location and make sure that you can reshape the way you work and break down any knowledge silos in your organization. So that said, let's jump into our actual webinar today. So what is metadata? Well, essentially metadata is additional information about your files. Well, it's basically just information about your files. So this is author, file name, creation date, content type, file size, and more. You can also call these site columns within SharePoint Online. They're basically used within document libraries, and they make it easy for you to locate and manage content in your SharePoint environment. So as you can see right here, we've set up some different metadata columns here. Took a picture and a screenshot and noted them out to you. As you can see, like right here, this is modified by, modified, what department, is it live? Here you can see the different documents, and this is just different data about them that kind of tells you at a glance what's important about the document and what's relevant for the purposes of this situation. So like, for instance, if this is for, external materials for a marketing department, is this live? Is this ready to go? Is this up? No, this is not. Yes, this is. Okay, perfect, good to go. So by default, there are 4 metadata tags that are set up within SharePoint Online. So when you first create a new SharePoint site and open up the document library that comes with that, these are the 4 columns / tags that are going to be created for you. These are type, so basically what kind of file it is. So is it a PDF? Is it a document? Is it an Excel spreadsheet? Is it a PowerPoint, et cetera, et cetera. Then you have the name, so the actual name of the file. And then you have modified, so when was the last time it was modified? And then finally modified by, so who was the last person to modify it? So by default, this can kind of let you know, recent activity within there, but it doesn't really tell you more than that. Now, beyond that, there are some semi-default metadata tags that basically SharePoint pre-configures for you. So you just basically have to go into your settings to turn these on. You can see the full list right here. Some of these include like checked in, check out, created by, what is the retention label sensitivity? What version is it? Don't turn all of these on at once because the way it works is that, so going back a slide, as you can see, everything goes across horizontally. So turning on all of these means you're just going to have to scroll all the way through to find the relevant information. Instead, you really just want to enable the metadata that is meaningful. So whether that's custom metadata that you've created for this particular document library or site collection, or if it's just for, the actual defaults right here that you've enabled, generally kind of looking through it, unless you're using apps, don't turn that on. Created by can be good, but your description is generally a good one, but you generally don't need file size, item child count, label setting, like count, retention label, sensitivity. A lot of these you really don't need, and instead just go with the kind of, so basically like realistically just title, maybe version. It really depends on what you're doing within that document library. So once you have all of your metadata configured, you've figured out what you want to do from the defaults and set up custom metadata, which I haven't shown you yet. But essentially, metadata allows you to configure different views in your document libraries. Now, you generally don't need to build a view if you don't have a lot of documents in there. But if you have a lot of documents within there and you want to sort everything out, a view can help you keep everything sorted. So instead of having to use, for instance, like a folder breakdown, so you have, okay, so this is the marketing folder, this is the sales folder, this is the da-da-da folder. Instead, what you can do is you can create metadata tags for, whatever you would do for those folders, and then you build out different views for those different documents. So for those different tags. So instead of jumping into the marketing folder, you just change it to the marketing view or the sales view or the R&D view. And then you're able to see all of the documents that have that tag that denotes that it's a marketing document, that it's a sales document, that it's an R&D document. So this can also help you find information faster, especially if you have commonly used metadata tags. You can build out different default views basically to act as a folder structure. Or what you could do is you can just build out new views or use the filter function, which again, basically views are filters you can preset up ahead of time, and then you just filter out the information based off of the different metadata tags. So one thing that you also want to think about with metadata is basically it's something called a taxonomy. So what a taxonomy is a sort of it's a dictionary of related terms. A good way to think about this is like the animal kingdom, the scientific taxonomies. So like, the way all of the terms that relate to being, a person, all of this. So basically you have like the environmental science breakdown from when you're like 5, you have like the animal kingdom, and then you have like ecosystem, basically it's that kind of tiering structure. So basically like if you have, basically it's hard to give a basic description of a taxonomy because honestly you can write whole books on taxonomies, on like the actual process of building one, because it takes time and it's super custom. It's based off of what your organization is doing, how things are set up, how you want things to function. But essentially a kind of way to think about it is it's essentially just like, hey, it's basically just like a set of different metadata tags that you use on a consistent basis within a specific area of your SharePoint environment. But yeah, so you got to be smart. You got to be strategic about how you set it up. And honestly, you could do a whole webinar itself just on building a basic taxonomy. And even then it wouldn't cover everything you needed to get started. But suffice to say, that is an important term when it comes to metadata. And if you're going around on different blogs and trying to learn more, people are going to keep bringing up taxonomies. And so it's important to just know what that means. Kind of like, you know, like when learning anything new or learning any new skill, you know, it's seeing the higher level stuff so you know it's there and you keep it in the back of your mind. But essentially we're not really going to go in depth on this. So basically when it comes to metadata, there's about 3 different tiers of metadata. So you have your essentially local, global, and kind of, I guess, regional. But essentially, so there's the 3 tiers are library tags, site columns, and your term sets. So library tags only apply within the library that they're used in. So the specific document library that you choose to build different terms in, those are library tags. They can't be seen anywhere else outside of that document library. They can be seen kind of if you want to reuse any of that metadata that you've set up there. But aside from that, no one else is really going to be able to see them if they don't have access to that document library. Then you have site columns. So these are essentially site-wide metadata columns that you can apply across all of the document libraries in a site collection. So essentially, so you either have it on the individual site. So, you know, hey, all of the sites on here have these different tags for like whether or not they're published because it's the marketing site. Or you have the marketing site collection. So like you have different marketing teams and they all have the same essentially taxonomy and metadata tags built out in their document library. So you set that up by default so that no one has to go in and, you know, configure a new site and new you know, metadata tag system in each document library each time you build out a new one. And then you have term sets. So these are essentially universal SharePoint tenant-wide tags that apply across all of your SharePoint sites. This relates back to what's called the term store, and this is where you set all of this up. And I'm not really going to go into term sets today, primarily because I previously did a SharePoint Basics series on the actual term store, how to set that up and how to set up term sets within SharePoint Online. So if you want to go find that, you can find that on our website, mydoc365.com/webinars. If you scroll down through, you should be able to find it under, you know, the SharePoint Basics series. So, you know, you can Control F or whatever. But essentially, we go more in depth on that there, kind of explore how to set that up, tips for setting that up, and making sure that you're using the term store and term sets effectively. So from there, essentially the metadata and search. So one of the big things about using metadata is that it can help with the search functionality in SharePoint Online. So SharePoint Search works by searching through the different files. So it basically kind of works like Google's search algorithm. It sends out a bot that just goes through all of the different files in your organization through it. So basically, think about it like SharePoint Search works by searching through your indexed files. So what that means is that periodically Microsoft will send a bot through your SharePoint files, and it will index your files, and it'll take a look at a couple key pieces of information. It'll take a look at the title. It'll take a look at any keywords in there. So repetitive phrases and concepts that show up over and over again. So if you're doing like a marketing document for, you know, 2021, like you're setting up an April 2020 marketing plan and you use the phrase April 20 marketing over and over and over again, if you were to go into the search bar, even if the document was entitled April 2020 marketing, it would still show up very highly in the search results because SharePoint identified that that was a key word. But then it also searches by metadata tags, because basically metadata tags are your way of telling SharePoint that this is what I'm associating the document with. So basically, if you want people to be able to find a certain document a certain way, and you don't want to, use the phrase over and over again within the document, then use metadata tags to say, well, this is important for this. This is what this is labeled as. This is how I want this to be labeled. And then from there, when people go to search something within the search bar, depending on the parameters for their search, so if they're searching either only within a document library or they're searching site-wide, documents will then appear and show up in listings based off of that information. So yeah, I think that kind of covers the basics of metadata. Let's kind of take a look at why you should be using metadata. So first of all, metadata is really good for keeping data organized. I don't know if I've mentioned that, but it also helps you save time. So in 2018, Nintex conducted a survey of about 1,000 full-time employees in the United States across a variety of different industries and different departments. And there were two key findings that stood out, at least for me. So the first is that 39% of respondents observed that their company had a broken document management / sales process in their organization. So, there's a lot of ways that can play out in an organization, but for a company that's using Office 365 and SharePoint Online, then that just means people are kind of using SharePoint as a glorified file server. They're not a glorified file server, but essentially like a glorified OneDrive. And they're not being careful about how they're using things. Nothing's organized. People are just kind of throwing things out there, labeling things, not labeling things. And it's a mess. And metadata can really help combat that. It can help you keep things organized. It keeps people in line and prevents them from just throwing things out into the ether. I mean, they still can, but it's noticeable when they do. That's the big thing. So if you have a robust metadata system, if people are supposed to tag things a certain way, if you've set things up, then you can see, oh, this file was just here. I don't know what this is. Well, okay, well, who created it? Okay, they did this. They need to go in and fix everything and make sure it adapts to our current metadata file structure. And then finally is that 49% of respondents said that they just had trouble finding documents. That's a major problem. I remember once reading a statistic that said that on average, the average employee spends somewhere around 19.2 hours per week just searching for documents, just searching for and looking for the things they needed to do their job, which that's half it. I mean, that's half the week right there. They're just searching, and you don't think about it because, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there were a couple times you had to spend like an hour or two looking for a document because you just couldn't find it. Well, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. If you're having to, there's so much more you could be doing in that time if you're not having to just dig through piles and piles of document libraries and searching through different, file structures just to find what you're looking for. That doesn't work. But with metadata, you can tag everything so that you can reliably use SharePoint search functionality. So you're not just having to, jump around, dig through things. You can actually, users in your organization will be able to go into that search bar and say, okay, I need to find this thing. I know it's labeled with this, or at least it should be. And so if it is labeled with that, then they can find it immediately. And if it's not, well, then, sure, they still have to go and find it. But once they find it, they can resolve it. So no one else has to go through that problem. And they can know, okay, maybe we need to talk to this person who isn't setting up the files properly, who isn't tagging everything as they're supposed to be doing. So kind of going on into a couple different use cases for metadata. So there's these are just off the top of my head, a couple things that I came up with based off of my knowledge of metadata and different, the way different departments run. So like with marketing, a really good way to do it is, so basically you build out a metadata column in a library of promotional material. So essentially you're saying, okay, so these are the graphics that are going to go up on Twitter. These are the graphics that are going to go up on Facebook. These are the stuff that's going to go up on Twitter. So labeling out, okay, so having a metadata column with a, with a drop-down choice option for, okay, so this is Twitter, this is Facebook, this is that. And then is it approved? Is it not approved? Is it ready to go? Is it not ready to go? Has it been scheduled? Is it not scheduled? Basically keeping track of everything so that, you can keep track of that. So you're not having a situation where, oh, so-and-so is supposed to post to Twitter today. Did they? Oh, okay, no, I got to go post to Twitter right now. But instead it's, okay, is this set up? Is this scheduled? Is it ready to go? Can we upload this to whatever social media, pre-publishing platform we're using? And if it is, well, then you're good to go. And basically it just allows you to keep track of everything. And if you want to say, label out your different marketing materials by like marketing 2020, marketing 2019, marketing 2021, marketing 2022, and then building out different views for that. So saying, okay, I want to see everything we created in 2019. I want to see everything we created in 2020. I want to see everything we've created this year. And instead of having to search through all of that information. And then, so the next one up is sales. So this one's also pretty similar use case. So essentially, if you are working in multiple regions or you're working with multiple industries, say you're a B2B sales, basically creating a metadata column that labels the different, promotional materials, the different, contracts and different, just sales materials that you're using for different industries, for different regions. So basically something that, and labeling it with that. So, or, say someone writes a primer on how to work in a certain region, something that they should know about that area, different idiosyncrasies, that sort of thing. They can compile all of that information together and then tag it with that specific region, that specific industry. So you have someone new come in, someone switches roles, takes over that region, takes over that industry. They can then search through the sales document library, find everything tagged with that, read through those materials, and be better primed. So that way you're not having these kind of knowledge silos of people being like, okay, well, I've just been moved to this and I don't know who to talk to and I don't know what's going on and I can't find any of the previous materials. But instead you're compiling that information, tagging it, and making sure that people can find it. Moving on to policies and procedures. So this is pretty simple, making a public library where people can see all the different policies and procedures. So, who it relates to, so what department it's a part of, what version it is, who all it applies to, so for what job titles, and when it's effective, so that people can know, okay, well, I have a couple days before they ban my Heelys in the office place, because people still wear Heelys, right? Yeah. Or they ban certain types of ties. I'm not allowed to have a duck on my tie anymore. But I have a couple days, so I'm going to wear my duck up until then, or stuff like that. But essentially just kind of situations like that where people can be appraised and know what's going on. So that you also, so say someone violates a policy, and you go back and retroactively find it. Well, you can find the metadata tag that, okay, so this version of the policy was published on this date after the supposed infraction. So it turns out they didn't actually do anything wrong, but if they do it again, they will have done something wrong. Moving on from that, so like with R&D, so basically labeling files with different columns that note like when a document was submitted, what project it's associated with, what product it's associated with as well. Just keeping information organized in a way that makes it so that if someone needs to go look at like a project kicked off document, if someone needs to go take a look at like say new features that have been added, a product change log, that sort of thing. You can keep track of that information, tag it with like change log, what type it is, what product it's associated with, so that people can find that information without having to, again, just dig through a full document library. So kind of with those examples out of the way, I'm going to jump into setting up different little bits of, one second, let's get this share back on the road. So I'm going to take a look at how to set up different bits of metadata within SharePoint Online. So as you can see right here, this is just a basic project site that I've set up for, just a variety of different things. But in this case, with the documents, so jumping into here, this is our document library. So what this does is, as you can see right here, I've added a few documents right here a couple hours ago just to make sure that I could show this off to you. But essentially, this is the different metadata tags. So these are the different columns. Adding a column is really easy. You just come in here, click the type that you want to do. So for instance, if you want to add like, a person, and you set it up so that you want to say owned by. and you want to select it so that someone can, you know, it's assigned to this person, or it's owned by this person, it's this person's marketing materials, you can set that up and then set it up so that it's applied to all content types or just the singular. But as you can see right here with these different ones, I've set up one for, like, you know, by department. So this is marketing, this is sales. Is it live? Yes, no. And then, like, taking a look at the different views right here. So I've set up one specifically for marketing. So click over to that, and then suddenly it filters out everything that isn't marketing. And that is one I've set up by default. So jumping back into actually, you know, the full metadata building out process. So if you want to come in here, let's go to library settings. So this is going to take us to the back end of our SharePoint just site in general, but for specifically this document library. So as you can see, there's a bunch of different stuff, but if we come down here to columns, so these are all of the different metadata tags. These are what are currently available in this library. It's not that they're not, however, it's just that they're, you know, not visible. There on that document library. So if you want to edit one, you can just click right here and it'll take you to this, and it'll allow you to change the column. So you can add any descriptions, change the formatting. Certain ones, like the default of like title, while you can change the name, you can't change what it is. That's just the way it is. However, if you want to add a new column, what you can do is you can come in here and we'll say, okay, I want to set up something for, like, say, you know, what stage it's at. So for instance, like if we're working on a project or something, so project stage, we'll say there's about 4 stages, or, you know, 3 stages, why not? So this, for this one, we'll go with a choice. So essentially it's a menu that you get to choose from. So then it'll update and everything, and then you can provide a description. You really don't need to do that, but essentially you can provide different choices. So with the Dropbox, we'll, you know, with the drop down, we'll say stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And then you can set up any of this, change the formatting, press OK. And then what we'll do is we'll come up here into the column default value settings. And these are any custom metadata tags that you've added. So for instance, right here, we've set up project stage. And so it defaults to stage 1 as its value. So let's go back into documents real quick, into the actual document library. So let's click back to the home page real quick. And we will come right here. And as you can see right here, there's project stage. So if I want to change what project stage is at, I'll come up here and click information. As you can see, here's a fuller breakdown of all of the different metadata associated with it. So you can see when it was modified, the path to it, size, type, any activity associated with it. But we'll go to project stage and we'll change this to a stage 1. And it'll save the information and it'll update right there. Change this to a stage 2. And then what we'll do is we'll select out of this and we'll just search for stage 1. Show my results. And as you can see, oh, no. That's actually my mistake. That is my mistake. It hasn't been hit. So that's a wonderful example of, oh no, don't go there. But essentially that is a wonderful example of not using the search feature until you've fully indexed any changes you've made. I 100% forgot that, because, so basically the reason that that search didn't work is because I just added that. So there has been no time for Microsoft to go through and re-index everything on this site. So generally Microsoft does it about once or twice a day. But so once you've made a change, added a metadata column, give it time. You can manually re-index your whole site and everything, but you know, that's not something I'm going to take a look at today. But essentially, it might take a bit of time. However, tomorrow, if I were to come in here and I were to search for stage 1 case study, that case study document right here would show up at the top because it had been indexed, and because search doesn't do a live search. It just goes based off of your index. So that is something to keep in mind. It will take time to show up and, present all of the information to you. But essentially that's metadata. It's actually really simple. A lot of people try to make it seem intimidating and difficult. But at this point in time, it's basically a buzzword. It's basically just how you label and sort information in a document library. If you want to get really advanced with some of the applications, you can do things like setting up whole workflows that then pull information from your metadata columns. So if you have your workflows set up, if you're handy with those, you can build out these different metadata columns and then use them to feed into workflows to automate some of your business processes. Again, I'm not going to touch on that, mostly because we've already done a SharePoint Basics series on workflows. So if you want to go back through again, mydoc365.com/webinars. If you scroll down, you should be able to find our workflow webinar. So that said, I'm going to jump back into the PowerPoint real quick, specifically because I have a couple tips for how to use metadata without, screwing yourself over in the process. So first of all, you want to be strategic about how you use metadata. Basically, don't just tag everything, but don't be stringent with your tags. You got to find a right balance of tagging things appropriately, but also not overusing tags, because then you just have a system that's flooded with tags, and you're just kind of wasting time tagging things. Like, think about why you're tagging something. If you're applying marketing to a document because it's for the marketing department, that makes sense. If you're applying a tag for marketing report Q1 2021, and that's the only document that's going to be labeled that, well, that doesn't make sense. You don't need to build out metadata, that you don't need to apply that metadata tag, because when you go to use the search function in SharePoint Online, if you have that document titled, Q1 2021 marketing report, then it's going to that's going to be the first thing that pulls up. So you don't need to over apply metadata tags, but like if you don't use them at all, they're not going to be helpful. It's kind of the best way to put that is you got to find the right balance for your organization. Because, on one hand, I'm just kind of treading the same ground over and over again, which is just don't overuse it, but don't underuse it. Next up is maintain a certain set of standards. Don't let people just do their own thing. If you build out a set of metadata tags for a site and you say, this is what we're using, this is how we're using it, do not let people deviate from that. Don't let people kind of do their own thing. Try to establish an organization-wide metadata setup. There are going to be some differences, certain things that marketing does that sales doesn't, and vice versa, and certain things that development's going to do that other departments aren't. Legal, same thing. But for the most part, try to maintain a consistent metadata structure, because otherwise, well, your IT team or whoever is responsible for maintaining your SharePoint site is going to have a heck of a hard time. I have heard some horror stories about, one department does things a different way. One department does things, this way. One department does things in a completely backwards way. And people were just overworked and overwrought. So try to keep things consistent so that if a file does go missing and you have to go contact whoever is responsible for finding it, they know how to look. They're not having to learn a whole new file structure on the fly just to find what you're looking for. Next up is you want to be consistent. So this kind of has overlap with maintaining standards, but it's also just consistently using your metadata. If you set it up, if you say we're going to use this, use it. You have to be consistent with using it. Otherwise, it's going to fall apart. You're going to have things tagged, you know, you're going to run into a situation where it's like, okay, we're going to get our metadata set up. 6 months from then, you know, it all falls apart. And then a couple months later, you say, we need to get back into using our metadata. So you set up a whole new structure, make some changes, and then it falls apart again. And that just happens ad infinitum, and you just run into a situation where you have like 5 different structures for how things are set up, and nothing's proper. Things are slipping through the cracks, and it just if you're going to use metadata consistently, and then finally review constantly. Be on the lookout in your organization. Is everything tagged properly? Is everyone adhering to the file structure? Is your metadata structure working? Like, are people using it? Do people want to use it? If people aren't using it, why aren't they using it? These are things you should be asking yourselves. Don't fall into the trap of saying, well, I've set it up, I don't have to think about it anymore, because things fall apart, things break, people get caught in time crunches and can't adequately tag things. So make sure that you're keeping track of all of that, make sure that you're staying on top of that and making sure that people are using it. So I think that's everything for now. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. In the meantime, I'll go over some of the upcoming webinars that we have. So next week, we'll be taking a look at important sales data you should be tracking. Specifically, we'll be talking about how you can track that using Office 365. From there, we'll go into a basic guide to OCR contract management tools. We'll be presenting that on the 27th. After that, on May 4th, we'll be doing how Office 365 can help you avoid common sales problems. And then after that, on May 11th, we'll be doing the next SharePoint Basics series. This time we'll do it on external sharing. So how to share content externally without putting your company in danger. So I don't see any questions. So I think we're going to wrap things up. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us at 904-309-9970. Or reach out to us at info@mydoc365.com or qrussell@mydoc365.com. If you have any questions or you appreciate the work we've done today, feel free to follow us on LinkedIn at doc365.com. So this has been Quentin Russell with Doc365 with the SharePoint Basics series on metadata. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much, and goodbye.